Bienvenidos! Today we're going to learn about the terms tiempo and hacer in Spanish and how to use these terms to talk about time and weather. Now in Spanish, we use tiempo to talk about time and weather, and we also use hacer to talk about weather. A lot of people who speak English are kind of confused by this, so first we're going to think about the concepts behind the language that we use in English, and then I think the Spanish is going to make more sense. So if we think about how we use time, the word time in English, we can divide it up into different concepts. One of the concepts that we use when we're using the word time is repetitive action. This time, or two times. And in Spanish, we don't use the word time or tiempo to talk about this. When we're talking about repetitive action, we use vez and veces. So we have this time, esta vez, two times, dos veces. Now, another concept behind the word time in English is a point in time. What time is it, or what time is the meeting? And in Spanish, we don't use the word time to talk about a point in time. We use hora or minutos. And when we're actually talking about time on a clock, we would use hora. So, what time? Que hora. Now, another concept where in English we use the word time is when we're talking about a span of time. So we would say, it's been a long time. How much time, talking about a span of time, in time or with time, and out of time. But in Spanish, we use the word time, tiempo, to talk about a span of time. Hace mucho tiempo, it's been a long time, it's been making a long time. ¿Cuánto tiempo hace que? How much time has it been? And instead of using the been, we use hacer, has been doing, or has been making. Con tiempo, with time. Falta tiempo, lack time. So we do use, when we're talking about a span of time, we use the term tiempo in Spanish. Now another thing, a concept that we use in English is ambient time. So ambient conditions. We'll say, having a good time, olden times, convenient time. Those are more ambient conditions. And in Spanish, again, we use the word time to talk about that. Pasar buen tiempo, tiempos antiguos, tiempo conveniente. You know, those are more ambient conditions. So far, when we're talking about repetitive action in Spanish, we don't use the word time, we use vez or veces. When we're talking about a point in time, like time on the clock, we use hora. But when we're talking about a span of time or ambient conditions, we do use the word tiempo. Now, the ambient conditions in Spanish includes atmospheric conditions. So the word tiempo is also used to talk about atmospheric conditions. But in English, when we're talking about atmospheric conditions, we don't use the word time to talk about that. Even though it's ambient conditions, it's atmospheric conditions, and we say weather. But in Spanish, we just continue to use the word tiempo. So el tiempo in Spanish means the weather. It's ambient conditions. So to have good weather, hacer buen tiempo. The weather, el tiempo, to be hot or cold, hacer calor or hacer frío. That has to do with the weather. Now, I have some more examples of talking about the weather in Spanish. If we're talking about good weather or bad weather, hacer buen tiempo, hacer mal tiempo. If it's hot or cold, hacer calor o frío. It's cool or it's sunny. Hace fresco, hace sol. It's windy, hace viento, or hay viento. Now those are ambient conditions, so we're using hacer with those terms. Now, we come to some terms that are where we don't use hacer necessarily, we use I, like there is, like something exists. So, hay relámpagos, there's lightning or it's lightning. It's humid, hay humedad, it's foggy, hay niebla, it's sprinkling, hay lloviznas, it's misty, hay neblina, it's storming or it's stormy, hay tormenta. So those are things that exist. Then there are also terms when there's actual atmospheric activity happening, and we use verbs to talk about that. It's thundering, truena, okay, that's from the verb tornar, truena. It's raining, llueve, or está lloviendo. It's snowing or snowy, nieva or está nevando. It's cloudy, está nublado. So if you divide weather into different categories, we have ambient conditions, the existence of things, and action that's happening in the weather, then it might be easier for you to remember the different expressions that are used in Spanish to talk about the weather. We also have expressions for a span of time in Spanish. How much time has it been, or how long has it been? You could say, ¿cuánto tiempo hace? Or ¿hace cuánto tiempo? It's been a long time. Hace mucho tiempo. It's not been a long time. No hace mucho tiempo. Or it's been a short time. Hace poco tiempo. So these are expressions with using the verb hacer in Spanish that are used to express a span of time.